The message arrived at Earth Defense Command at 3:47 in the morning. Admiral Kang Jinho was sleeping in his office when his assistant woke him. The old soldier read the transmission twice, then a third time. His hands did not shake. He had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. The Valaran Empire had found Earth within 1 hour. Every military leader on the planet sat in a secure room deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Screens covered the walls, showing data that made strong men go pale. The Valaran Third Fleet was moving toward human space. 4,000 warships. Enough firepower to burn 100 worlds. Admiral Kang stood at the front of the room. His white hair and lined face told the story of 40 years in service. He had fought pirates, rebels, and rogue colonies. But nothing like this. No one had ever faced anything like this. The Valaran Empire has conquered 600 species, Kang said. His voice was steady. Not one has ever defeated them. Not one has even come close. Their technology is 3 centuries ahead of ours. Their ships are faster, stronger, and more numerous than anything we can build. He paused. The room was silent. We have 47 combat ships. Most are still in testing. Our newest vessel, the HSS Resolve, finished construction only 3 months ago. A general from Europe spoke up. Then we negotiate. We surrender. We save what lives we can. Kang looked at the man without expression. The Valarans do not negotiate. They do not accept surrender. Every species they have conquered has been enslaved or destroyed. There is no middle ground with them. Then what do you suggest? Another voice asked. We cannot fight 4,000 ships. Kang touched a control. The main screen changed to show a star map. A single point glowed red between Earth and the approaching fleet. The Kepler transit point, Kang said. The Valaran fleet must pass through this location to reach Earth. It is a natural choke point. If we can delay them there, even for a few days, we can evacuate our civilians to the outer colonies. Delay them with what? The European general demanded. You just said we cannot fight them. Kang's jaw tightened. I am proposing we send 1 ship. The Resolve. It will engage the enemy fleet and buy us time. The room exploded with voices. Some called Kang insane. Others demanded he explain himself. A few simply stared in shock. Kang waited for silence. 1 ship can move faster than a fleet. 1 ship can hide, strike, and disappear. 1 ship, with the right captain, can make the enemy cautious. Every hour they spend hunting that ship is an hour our people use to escape. You are asking someone to die, a woman said quietly. She was the defense minister, and her eyes were wet. You are asking a crew to sacrifice themselves for hours. Perhaps days. Yes, Kang said. I am. The room fell silent again. Everyone understood. This was not a battle plan. It was a funeral arrangement. 300 kilometers away, Captain Park Do-hyun sat in his cabin aboard the HSS Resolve. He was reading the same transmission that had woken Admiral Kang. His face showed nothing as he studied the numbers. 4,000 ships. His ship had a crew of 847. The math was simple. The math was death. A knock came at his door. Enter, Park said. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hana stepped inside. She was his tactical officer, a woman of 35 with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. She had designed half the weapon systems on this ship. She knew what they could do. She also knew what they could not. You have seen the transmission, she said. It was not a question. Yes, command will send us. You know this. Park nodded slowly. I know. Yoon sat down across from him. For a moment, she was not his officer. She was his friend of 12 years. They had served together on 4 ships. They had saved each other's lives more times than either could count. "The crew will follow you," she said. "Whatever you decide. But they deserve to know the truth." "The truth is simple," Park said. "We go, we fight, we die. But we die giving our people a chance. That is more than most soldiers can hope for. And if we do not die," Park almost smiled, almost, "then we will have a very good story to tell." The call came 2 hours later. Admiral Kang appeared on Park's screen, looking older than his years. The two men had known each other for decades. They had drunk together, argued together, buried friends together. Now one was sending the other to die. "You understand what I am asking," Kang said. "I understand. I cannot order this. I can only ask. If you refuse, no one will blame you." Park was quiet for a long moment. Through his cabin window, he could see Earth, blue and green and white, home to 8 billion people who had no idea what was coming for them. "Admiral," Park said, "I joined the Navy to protect that planet. Every person on my crew did the same. We did not join to run. We did not join to hide. We joined to stand between Earth and whatever threatened it." Kang closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were bright with unshed tears. "Then God go with you, old friend." "God, luck, and good engineering," Park replied. "I will take whatever I can get." The Resolve launched 6 hours later. The crew had been told everything. They knew the odds. They knew what they were flying toward. Not one person asked to leave. Not one person hesitated. Chief Engineer Baek Sunwoo, a large man with hands scarred by decades of work, stood in the engine room and watched his machines come to life. He had built engines for 20 years. This engine was his masterpiece. It held secrets that even Command did not fully understand. "She will not fail us," Baek said to himself. "Whatever else happens, she will not fail." On the bridge, Ensign Cho Minji sat at the communications station. She was 23 years old. This was her first real deployment. Her hands trembled slightly as she ran her checks, but her voice was steady when she reported ready. Park noticed. He noticed everything. "Ensign," he said quietly, "are you afraid?" Minji looked at her captain. She could have lied. She did not. "Yes, sir." "Very afraid." Park nodded. "Good. Fear keeps us sharp. Fear keeps us alive. Only fools feel no fear." "You are not a fool, Ensign." Minji managed a small smile. "Thank you, sir. Thank me when we get home." The Resolve cleared Earth's orbit and turned toward the stars. Behind them, the blue planet grew smaller. Ahead, darkness waited. Somewhere in that darkness, 4,000 enemy ships were coming to end humanity. Lieutenant Commander Yoon ran her final weapons check. Missiles loaded. Cannons charged. Defense systems active. Everything was ready. Everything except her heart, which beat too fast no matter how she tried to calm it. She looked at Park. He sat in his command chair like a man going to work on an ordinary day. Calm, focused, ready. "Captain," she said, "the Empire has never lost a battle." Park did not look away from the stars ahead. "Then they have never fought us." The Resolve jumped to faster than light speed. The stars stretched into lines of light, and 847 humans flew toward the impossible, carrying nothing but courage and a single ship. The war for Earth had begun. The Resolve arrived at the Kepler transit point 3 days before the enemy fleet. Captain Park used every hour of that time. He did not waste a single minute. The transit point was a region of empty space where the fabric of the universe was thin. Ships could enter faster than light travel here more easily than anywhere else. Any fleet coming from the direction of Valon space would pass through this exact location. There was no other path. Park stood on the bridge and studied the star maps. His eyes moved across the data with the focus of a man building something in his mind. A plan, a trap, a chance. Deploy the sensor buoys, he ordered. I want eyes on every cubic kilometer of this space. If a rock moves out there, I want to know about it. Lieutenant Commander Yoon worked her console with quick, precise movements. Within hours, a network of tiny machines spread across the transit point. They were nearly invisible, smaller than a human fist. But they could see everything. Buoys active, Yoon reported. We will know the moment they arrive. Park nodded. Now the mining drones. Place them in the asteroid field to the north. Program them for remote detonation. You want to use asteroids as weapons? I want to use everything as a weapon. Chief Engineer Baek Sung-woo came to the bridge. His uniform was already stained with grease, though they had only been here for hours. He never could stay clean for long. Captain, you asked to see me? The gravity displacement drive, Park said. Tell me everything. Baek glanced around. Only senior officers were present. Still, he lowered his voice. The drive is experimental. Command wanted it installed for testing purposes only. They never expected us to use it in combat. What can it do? Baek rubbed his chin. In simple terms, it bends space. We can create zones where gravity is stronger or weaker than normal. We can pull objects toward us or push them away. At full power, we can make the ship appear to be in several places at once. Park's eyes narrowed with interest. How? Light bends around gravity wells. If we create multiple small wells around the ship, our image gets split. Enemy sensors will show 3 or 4 copies of us. They will not know which is real. Yoon leaned forward. Can we weaponize it? Use the gravity wells to crush enemy ships? Baek shook his head. Not at their current power level. We would need to be almost touching the enemy hull. But we can use it for defense, for confusion, for making them afraid. Fear is a weapon, Park said quietly. Perhaps the best weapon we have. Ensign Cho Minji spoke up from her station. Her voice was uncertain, apologetic. Captain, I am picking up communications. Valoran frequencies. The bridge went still. Let me hear them, Park said. Minji worked her controls. A moment later, alien voices filled the bridge. The translation software turned them into flat, mechanical Korean. Single vessel at the transit point. Primitive technology. Scans indicate minimal weapon systems. Probably a scout. They know we are coming. One ship? These humans send one ship against the Third Fleet? Are they stupid or simply resigned to death? Laughter. The sound of it was strange, harsh, wrong. But it was clearly laughter. Fleet Commander Vorath will destroy them in seconds. This is not even worth reporting. Minji cut the transmission. Her face was pale, but her jaw was tight with anger. They think we are nothing, she said. Good, Park replied. Let them think that. Underestimation is a gift, Ensign. Our enemy has just given us a present. The next 2 days passed in tense preparation. Park drilled his crew relentlessly. They practiced combat maneuvers until every person could do their job in their sleep. They ran simulations of battles against impossible odds. They lost those simulations again and again. But each time, they lasted a little longer. Each time, they learned something new. On the morning of the 3rd day, the sensor buoys detected a disturbance. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Light bent in ways that hurt human eyes to watch. They are here, Yoon said. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped her console. The Valoran fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. Ship after ship appeared, filling the screens with hostile contacts. The computer tried to count them and struggled to keep up. 1,000. 2,000. 3,000. Finally, the number stabilized. 4,127 warships. They arranged themselves in perfect formation, spreading across space like a wall of metal and death. The smallest of them was twice the size of the Resolve. The largest were like floating cities, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. At the center of the formation, one ship stood above all others. It was the flagship of Fleet Commander Vorath. It was called the Eternal Victory, and it had never known defeat. "Incoming transmission," Minji said. "They are hailing us. Put it through." The main screen changed. A face appeared. It was not human. The features were longer, sharper, covered in fine gray scales. The eyes were yellow with black slits for pupils. When the creature spoke, its voice was like stones grinding together. "I am Fleet Commander Vorath of the Valoran Empire. You will power down your weapons and surrender your vessel immediately. Your crew will be taken for processing. Your planet will be claimed for the Empire. Resistance is meaningless. You have 30 seconds to comply." Park stood slowly from his command chair. He straightened his uniform. He looked directly into those yellow eyes. "I am Captain Park Do-yoon of the human ship Resolve. I have a counteroffer." Vorath's eyes widened slightly. No one had ever responded to his demands with anything but terror or pleading. "Turn your fleet around," Park continued. "Go home. Tell your emperor that Earth is not worth the cost. Because I promise you, Fleet Commander, the cost will be higher than you can imagine." Vorath stared for a long moment. Then his mouth opened, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. He was laughing. "One ship," Vorath said. "You sit in one ship and threaten 4,000. Your species is insane." "Perhaps," Park said, "but sanity is not what wins wars. You will die screaming, human. Your crew will beg for mercy. There will be none." Park smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had already accepted death and found it no longer frightened him. "You have brought your empire, Fleet Commander. Ships, weapons, soldiers, everything you have. And you think that makes you strong?" He leaned forward. "We brought something better. We brought a reason to fight. And that is something your kind has never understood." He nodded to Minji. She cut the transmission. Vorath's face disappeared. The bridge was silent. Every officer stared at their captain. He had just insulted the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. He had challenged 4,000 warships with one. Park turned to face his crew. "Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Today, we show the universe what humanity can do." Alarms rang throughout the ship. Crew members ran to their positions. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. The Resolve turned toward the enemy fleet like a single wolf facing a herd of elephants. "Captain," Yoon said quietly, "first enemy squadron is targeting us. They are charging weapons. Let them fire first. Let the whole galaxy see who started this." A Valoran cruiser at the edge of the formation released a beam of white-hot energy. It crossed the distance between them in less than a second. The Resolve was no longer there. Beak had activated the gravity drive. The ship seemed to blur, to split, to become 3 ships at once. The enemy beam passed through empty space. "Our turn," Park said. "Fire." The battle for humanity's future had begun. The first hour of battle rewrote everything the Valoran Empire knew about war. The Resolve was everywhere and nowhere. One moment it appeared on the left side of the enemy formation. The next moment it was on the right. Then above. Then below. The gravity displacement drive turned a single ship into a ghost that could not be caught. Fleet Commander Vorath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Victory and watched his screens with growing disbelief. His ships fired again and again. Their weapons hit nothing but empty space and light illusions. Meanwhile, the human ships struck back with terrible precision. The Resolve's missiles were small but clever. Lieutenant Commander Yoon had programmed them herself. They did not fly in straight lines. They curved, dodged, hid behind debris. They waited until Valoran shields flickered during recharging cycles. Then they struck. In the first hour, 37 Valoran warships exploded. How is this possible? Vorath demanded. It is one ship. One ship. His officers had no answers. They had fought 100 wars. They had crushed species far more advanced than humanity. They had never seen anything like this. They are using our formations against us, one officer realized. When we fire at them and they dodge, our weapons hit our own ships. Vorath's scales darkened with anger. Then spread the formation. Give them no cover. The order went out. The Valoran fleet began to expand, ships moving apart to create clear firing lines. It was the logical response. It was exactly what Park wanted. They are spreading out, you reported. Gaps opening in their formation. Good, Park said. Deploy the spider mines. The Resolve launched hundreds of small objects into space. They were no bigger than a human hand, shaped like metal insects. They drifted through the battlefield on tiny jets of gas, almost invisible against the darkness. The spider mines attached themselves to Valoran hulls. They crawled across metal surfaces, finding weak points. Engine exhaust ports, sensor arrays, shield generators. Then they waited. 2 hours into the battle, Park gave the command. Every spider mine detonated at once. 94 ships lost their engines. 123 lost their shields. 67 lost both. They drifted helplessly, unable to fight, blocking the paths of their sister ships. Vorath watched his screens fill with distress signals. His fleet was beginning to look like a wounded animal, bleeding from 100 small cuts. Concentrate fire on the human ship, he ordered. All ships. Every weapon. Now. 4,000 ships turned their guns toward the Resolve. The weight of firepower was beyond imagination. No single target had ever faced such an attack. The Resolve vanished. Not a trick this time. Not an illusion. Park had ordered a short, faster-than-light jump, just a few thousand kilometers. The enemy fire crossed through where they had been and continued forward. Valoran ships on the opposite side of the formation had no time to react. 342 ships were destroyed by their own fleet's weapons. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, an alarm began to sound. It was a damage report. A human missile had slipped through during the chaos and struck the flagship's secondary shield generator. Vorath felt something he had not felt in decades. He felt fear. What are they? He whispered. Captain Park allowed himself one moment of satisfaction. Then he turned to his crew. Their faces were bright with victory, with hope they had not expected to feel. Do not celebrate yet, Park warned. We have bloodied them. We have confused them. But we have not broken them. The hard part comes now. He was right. Vorath was afraid, but he was not stupid. He began to adapt. The Valoran fleet stopped firing wildly. They formed into smaller groups, each group protecting the others. They used their own disabled ships as shields. They launched fightercraft by the thousands, filling space with small, fast targets that the Resolve could not ignore. The battle entered its third hour. The Resolve was still fighting, still winning small victories. But the cost was rising. Shield power at 60%. Beak reported from engineering. The gravity drive is overheating. I need to reduce output or we will burn out the core. Do it, Park said. Keep us alive. With reduced gravity manipulation, the Resolve's illusions became fewer. The enemy began to track their real position more accurately. Near misses became glancing hits. Glancing hits became direct strikes. Yoon worked her console with desperate speed. She fired missiles, redirected shields, launched countermeasures. Sweat ran down her face. Her fingers ached from the constant movement. "Captain, they are learning," she said. "They are starting to predict our patterns." "Then change the patterns. Be random. Be chaos." "I am trying." There is only so much chaos one ship can create. In the communications station, Ensign Minji monitored enemy transmissions. What she heard made her blood run cold. "Captain, they are calling for reinforcements. The Fourth Fleet, another 3,000 ships." The bridge fell silent. They had fought brilliantly. They had destroyed or disabled over 500 enemy vessels. But 3,000 more would end them. There would be no tricks left, no surprises, no hope. Park closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face was calm. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" 14 hours, Minji said. "Then we have 14 hours to finish this." Yoon stared at him. "Sir, with respect, we cannot destroy 3,000 ships in 14 hours. We cannot destroy 300. We do not need to destroy them. We need to break them. We need to make them afraid. We need to make this victory so costly that the Empire will think twice before coming back." He stood and looked at the main screen. The Valaran fleet filled it from edge to edge. So many ships. So many enemies. And behind them, invisible but always present in his thoughts, Earth. 8 billion people counting on them without even knowing it. "Broadcast our position to the entire fleet," Park ordered. "Maximum power. Let them all see exactly where we are." Beak looked up from his station. "Captain, that will make us an easy target." "I know. Do it anyway." The signal went out. Every Valaran ship received the Resolve's exact coordinates. Larath himself saw the broadcast and laughed with cruel joy. "They have given up," he announced to his bridge. "The humans accept their death. All ships converge on their position." And this, the Valaran fleet moved as one. Thousands of ships rushing toward a single point. They smelled blood. They tasted victory. Park watched them come. He waited until they were committed, until their formation had collapsed into a hungry swarm. "Now," he said, "detonate the asteroid field." 20 kilometers away, the mining drones that had waited patiently for 2 days finally received their command. They exploded with the force of small nuclear weapons. But they were not designed to kill ships directly. They were designed to move rocks. The asteroid field came alive. Millions of tons of stone and metal began to move, accelerated by precisely placed explosions. They flew into the Valaran swarm at incredible speed. Ships tried to dodge. They crashed into each other. Ships tried to shoot the asteroids. They hit their allies instead. The carefully ordered fleet became a screaming chaos of collisions and friendly fire. When the debris cleared, another 800 Valaran ships had been destroyed. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, a Valaran captain screamed into his communicator. His voice broadcast across every frequency, heard by every ship in the fleet. "What are these humans?" Park heard the transmission. He looked at his exhausted crew. At Yoon, whose hands were burned from overloaded consoles. At Beak, whose engine room was held together by willpower. At Minji, whose young face had aged 10 years in 6 hours. "They are asking what we are," Park said quietly. "And soon, the entire galaxy will know the answer." Beak wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at his captain with exhausted admiration. "Sir, we are running out of tricks." Park met his eyes. Something hard and determined burned there. "Then it is time to stop playing." The battle entered its second day. 18 hours of constant fighting. The Resolve was damaged, bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. Emergency patches held the ship together. The crew worked in shifts, but no one truly rested. How could they sleep when death waited just outside? Captain Park had not left the bridge since the battle began. His eyes were red with exhaustion. His uniform was wrinkled and stained with coffee. But his voice remained steady. His mind remained sharp. His crew needed him to be a rock, so he became one. The Valoran fleet had pulled back to regroup. They had lost over 1,500 ships. Fleet Commander Vorath had been forced to explain his failures to the Emperor himself. That conversation had not gone well. Vorath's career, his life, his entire legacy now depended on destroying one human ship. "They are forming a sphere," Yoon reported. Her voice was rough with fatigue. A bandage covered her left arm, where a console had exploded during the last attack. She had refused medical treatment. There was no time. They mean to surround us completely. No escape routes. Park studied the tactical display. The enemy was contracting like a fist closing around an insect. Smart, patient, deadly. Ammunition status? 12%. Missiles almost gone. Energy weapons at half charge. Shields. She paused. "Shields are not going to survive another major attack, sir." In engineering, Chief Beek Sunwoo held his beloved engines together through sheer stubbornness. Cables had been rerouted so many times that the ship's original designers would not recognize their work. The gravity displacement drive sat silent and dark, its core cracked from overuse. "I can give you one more burst," Beek had told Park an hour ago. One. After that, the drive is dead. And possibly the ship with it. Park had nodded and saved that final card for when he truly needed it. Ensign Minji intercepted a priority transmission. Her young face went pale, then slowly changed. Tears formed in her eyes, but she was smiling. "Captain," she said, her voice breaking. "I have something you need to hear." She put it on the main speakers. Music, human music. A song about hope and courage and never giving up. And behind the music, voices. Thousands of voices, millions. This is Earth broadcasting to the HSS Resolve. The entire planet is watching. We see you. We believe in you. Come home to us. Please, come home. Park stared at the speakers. Around him, crew members stopped what they were doing. Some wiped their eyes. Others stood straighter, finding strength they did not know they had. "They're watching us," Minji whispered. "Everyone. The whole world." Yoon's hands trembled on her console. "Sir, there is more. The broadcast is not just on human frequencies. Someone has hacked into Valoran communication networks. Every species the Empire has conquered is receiving our battle footage." Park understood immediately. Somewhere, on hundreds of enslaved worlds, oppressed peoples were watching a single human ship stand against impossible odds. They were watching and remembering what it meant to fight back. "We are not just fighting for Earth anymore," Park said quietly. "We are fighting for everyone who has ever been crushed under the Empire's boot." A new transmission arrived. This one was from Fleet Commander Vorath himself. "Human vessel, respond." Park hesitated, then nodded to Minji. Vorath's face appeared on screen. He looked different now. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something almost like respect. "You have fought well," Vorath said. "Better than any species I have faced. Your tactics are impressive. Your courage is remarkable. The Empire recognizes strength when it sees it." "Is there a point to this conversation?" Park asked. "I am offering terms. Surrender your ship. Your crew will not be executed. They will be imprisoned, yes, but they will live. Your planet will be granted mercy. Slavery rather than extinction. Given what you face, this is generous. Park was silent for a long moment. He thought about his crew. 847 people who had followed him into certain death. They had families on Earth. Parents, children, lovers. They had dreams that would never come true if they died here. He thought about Earth. 8 billion people who wanted to live, who deserved to live, who should not have to pay for his pride. He thought about surrender, chains, servitude, generations of humans bowing to alien masters, their spirits broken, their hope crushed. I need to consult with my crew, Park said. Give me 1 hour. Vorath inclined his head. 1 hour. Then I want your answer. The screen went dark. Park turned to face his bridge crew. They looked back at him with eyes full of trust, fear, and something else. Something that looked like determination. You heard the offer, Park said. I will not make this decision alone. This affects all of us. I want every crew member to vote. Stay and fight, or accept the terms. The vote took 20 minutes. Every person on the ship cast their choice. Minji collected the results, her hand shaking as she opened the final tally. 847 votes cast, she announced. 847 votes to fight. Not one person had chosen surrender. Not one. Park felt something hot behind his eyes. He blinked it away. Then we fight. But we need a new plan. Our old tricks will not work anymore. Ideas? Beak's voice came over the intercom from engineering. Captain, I have been thinking. The gravity drive. I can overload it. Explain. If I remove all safety limits and push the core past its design parameters, we can create a gravity well strong enough to affect multiple ships. A very large gravity well. Yoon's eyes widened. How large? Large enough to pull their entire fleet into itself. Their ships would collide, crash, destroy each other. It would be like dropping a stone into a pond, except the stone weighs as much as a star. And the resolve? Beak was quiet for a moment. The resolve would be at the center of the effect. We would not survive. No one spoke. The plan was brilliant. It was also suicide. Park shook his head. No, I will not sacrifice this crew. Sir, Beak said, with respect, we are all dead anyway. At least this way, we take them with us. We save Earth. I said no. Find another way. Yoon suddenly sat up straight. Her eyes had that look Park knew well. The look that meant she had an idea. What if we do not create a gravity well? She said slowly. What if we create a gravity current? Explain. Instead of pulling everything toward a single point, we create a flow. A river of bent space. The enemy fleet is packed tight for their trap. If we generate a current that runs through their formation, their ships will be dragged along. They will crash into each other, not because they are being crushed, but because they are being moved. Beak's voice came back, excited now. That might work. The power requirements would be lower. We would still be at risk, but if we position ourselves at the edge of the current instead of the center, what are our chances of survival? Park asked. Silence. Beak? 12%, maybe. 12%. One chance in 8. Those were terrible odds. But they were not zero. Park looked at his crew. At Yoon, whose brilliant mind had found hope where there was none. At Minji, whose youth and fear had transformed into quiet courage. At the faces on the screen showing every station on the ship. Every man and woman who trusted him with their lives. We did not come here to die, he said. We came here to show the galaxy what one human ship can do. And we are not finished yet. He turned to Yoon. Execute the maneuver. Yoon smiled. It was fierce and wild and beautiful. With pleasure, Captain. The hour was almost up. Vorath waited on his flagship, confident that the humans would surrender. They had no choice. They were surrounded, outgunned, and out of options. His communications officer approached. "Fleet Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it through. Let us hear their surrender." Captain Park's face appeared on the screen. He did not look like a man who was giving up. He looked like a man who was just getting started. "Fleet Commander Vorath, we have considered your offer, and we have decided that we would rather die free than live as slaves. But here's the thing." Park leaned forward, and his eyes burned with something ancient and human and utterly terrifying. "We are not planning to die today. We are planning to make you regret ever coming here. Remember this moment. Remember what happens when you threaten humanity." The transmission ended. Vorath felt a chill run down his spine. Before he could issue any orders, his sensors screamed a warning. The human ship was doing something impossible. Space itself began to move. The Resolve activated its gravity drive at maximum power. Chief Engineer Beak had removed every safety limit, every protection, every barrier between the machine and destruction. The engine core glowed white-hot. The ship itself groaned as forces beyond imagination tore at its structure, and space obeyed. "Lieutenant." Commander Yoon watched her console with fierce concentration. She had calculated this maneuver a dozen times in the past hour. The mathematics were beautiful and terrifying. One mistake and they would be crushed. One miscalculation and they would tear themselves apart. She did not make mistakes. The gravity current formed exactly as she had planned. It was not a hole in space. It was a river. A flow of bent reality that ran through the heart of the Valarn fleet like water through a canyon. Ships began to move. Not because their engines pushed them, but because space itself carried them. The Valarn fleet, packed so tight for their killing trap, suddenly found themselves being dragged sideways, forward, into each other. Fleet Commander Vorath screamed orders that no one could follow. His ships fired their engines at full power, trying to escape the current. Some succeeded. Most did not. The gravity flow was too strong, too fast, too impossible to fight. A Valarn cruiser crashed into a destroyer. Both ships exploded, their debris becoming deadly missiles that struck other vessels. A dreadnought spun out of control and collided with two battleships. Chain reaction spread through the formation like fire through dry wood. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Vorath watched his fleet tear itself apart. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had destroyed species that had existed for millions of years. He had never felt so helpless. "All ships, break formation," he commanded. "Scatter. Save yourselves." But it was too late. The gravity current had become a whirlpool. Ships that tried to flee were caught at the edges and pulled back in. The more they struggled, the worse the destruction became. The Resolve rode the edge of the chaos like a small boat on a storming sea. Beak pushed the engines beyond anything they were designed for. The ship shook. Metal screamed. Warning alarms filled every corridor. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Someone shouted. "Fire in Engineering Section 2. Another voice called. "Shields failing." Park gripped his command chair and refused to look away from the screen. His ship was dying around him. His crew was fighting desperately to keep her alive. And outside, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was being destroyed by its own weight. 2,000 ships collided in the first 3 minutes. Explosions lit up space like a new sun being born. Debris fields formed, grew, and became hazards that claimed more victims. The gravity current swept through the Valarn formation and left devastation in its wake. Then the current began to fade. Beak's voice came over the intercom, weak and exhausted. "That is all she has, Captain. The drive is dead." Park nodded slowly. You did enough, my friend. You did more than enough. When space finally stabilized, the battlefield had changed completely. Where 4,000 ships had floated in perfect formation, now there was wreckage. Broken hulls drifted in all directions. Emergency beacons flashed from escape pods. The mighty Third Fleet of the Valoran Empire had been reduced to debris and survivors. The Resolve floated in the middle of it all. She was battered, broken, barely holding together. Smoke poured from a dozen wounds. Her lights flickered. Her engines wheezed, but she was alive. Ensign Minji counted the remaining enemy contacts. Her voice trembled as she spoke. 236 Valoran ships still operational, Captain. The rest are destroyed or disabled. Park closed his eyes for a moment. They had done it. Against all odds, against all logic, against everything the universe said was possible, they had done it. Open a channel to the remaining ships, he said. Minji's hands moved. Channel open. Park stood. He straightened his ruined uniform. He looked into the camera that would carry his image to every surviving enemy vessel. This is Captain Park Del-Yoon of the human ship Resolve. You have seen what one of our ships can do. You have felt the cost of threatening our world. Now I give you a choice. Leave. Return to your empire. Tell your emperor what happened here today. He paused, letting the words sink in. Or stay, and discover what we can do when we are truly angry. The Valoran ships did not respond. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, they began to turn. Their engines powered up. They oriented toward open space, away from Earth, away from the nightmare they had walked into. The Valoran fleet retreated. For the first time in 3,000 years, an Imperial fleet ran from an enemy. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Fleet Commander Vorath sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. His flagship had survived, barely. Most of his fleet had not. He would face the Emperor soon. He would answer for this failure. But as he watched the human ship sitting proudly among the wreckage of his armada, he felt something unexpected. Not hatred. Not anger. Admiration. Double quotes. What are they? He whispered again. This time, it was not a scream of frustration. It was a genuine question. He truly wanted to know. The Resolve limped toward home. Her faster-than-light drive barely functioned. A journey that should have taken hours stretched into days. The crew worked around the clock, patching holes, rerouting systems, keeping their wounded ship alive through sheer love and determination. On the third day, they entered the Sol system. Earth filled their view screens, blue and green and beautiful. Home. And then they saw the fleet. Every ship humanity had was waiting for them. 47 vessels, from massive carriers to tiny patrol boats. They had come to escort the Resolve home. Park stared at the sight with tears he did not bother to hide. Around him, his crew wept openly. They had left as sacrifices. They were returning as heroes. When the Resolve finally touched down on Earth, the entire planet was watching. Millions of people lined the streets around the landing site. Billions more watched on screens across the world. The ship descended through the atmosphere, trailing smoke, her hull scarred and blackened. Her proud form, reduced to something barely recognizable. She was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever seen. Admiral Kang Jinho stood at the front of the welcoming crowd. When the boarding ramp lowered and Captain Park walked out, the old soldier snapped to attention and saluted. Park returned the salute. Then, to everyone's surprise, he pulled Kang into an embrace. "We did it," Park said, his voice rough with emotion. "We actually did it." "I never doubted you," Kang lied. They both knew it was a lie. They both pretended otherwise. The crew of the Resolve emerged one by one. Each was greeted with cheers that shook the sky. Lieutenant Commander Yoon came out leaning on a medic, her injuries finally catching up with her. Chief Engineer Beak had to be carried on a stretcher, but he was smiling. Ensign Minji walked on her own, her young face transformed by what she had survived. 847 people had gone out. 819 came back. 28 had given their lives so that Earth could live. That night, the galaxy learned what had happened at Kepler Transit Point. The footage spread across every communication network, carried by those who had watched the battle and wanted to share the impossible truth. On 17 worlds controlled by the Valoran Empire, oppressed species saw the footage and began to hope. On 5 of those worlds, rebellions started within the week. Within the month, the Empire faced uprisings on 30 planets. One human ship had started a fire that would burn across the stars. 1 year later, the HSS Resolve was placed in a museum at the heart of the city where Admiral Kang had sent her to die. She had been preserved exactly as she was at the end of the battle, scars and all. Children came to stare at her with wonder in their eyes. Old soldiers came to salute her and remember their own wars. A plaque beneath the ship read, "They brought an empire. We brought courage." Courage was enough. Reporters asked Captain Park how one ship that defeated an empire. His answer was broadcast around the world and beyond. It became humanity's motto, their rallying cry, their promise to the universe. They counted our ships. They should have counted our hearts. Admiral Kang visited the museum sometimes. He would stand before the Resolve and remember the day he had sent 847 people to face impossible odds. He would remember Park's last words before launch. "We are not trying to win, Admiral. We are trying to show them who we are." They had shown them, and the galaxy never forgot. In the halls of the Valoran Imperial Palace, Emperor Thalos removed the Andromeda sector from his list of targets. Earth was too dangerous. Humanity was too stubborn, too clever, too willing to die for their freedom. Let them have their little world, he told his advisors. There were easier conquests elsewhere. He did not realize that he had already lost something more important than territory. He had lost the idea that the Empire was invincible. He had lost the fear that kept enslaved species obedient. He had lost because one ship, carrying one crew, refused to accept that the fight was hopeless. And in the museum on Earth, the Resolve sat in honored silence, her battle scars gleaming under soft lights. She had been built to explore the stars. She had become a symbol of everything humanity could achieve when they stood together. Somewhere across the galaxy, another species was rising up. Another world was choosing freedom over chains. Another fight was beginning. The fire that the Resolve had started would never stop burning. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had announced their arrival in a way that no one would ever forget. One ship, 847 hearts. That was all it took to change everything.